On the 22nd of September 2015, the Election Resource Center, an advocacy institution on democracy and elections, along with 14 other civil society organizations, petitioned the Parliament of Zimbabwe demanding comprehensive electoral reforms. The petition was driven by the need to expedite alignment of the Electoral Act with the Constitution of Zimbabwe, which was enacted into law in 2013. Public hearings to this effect will be held across the country from Monday, the 24th of October 2016 to Sunday, the 30th of October 2016 at the following venues, dates and times. Harare at the Senate Chamber at 2 p.m. Concession at the Concession RDC Hall. Mutoko at the Mutoko Rural District Council. Mutare at the Mutare Civic Center Hall. Bulawayo at the Iminyela Hall. Gwanda at the Gwanda Hotel, and Gweru at the Gweru Civic Center. These will be happening at 10 a.m. Today, earlier on, we're actually at the Senate Chamber in Harare, looking at the first public hearing, and the discussions were very lively. There was a lot to speak about, and my guest in studio tonight, who's going to help me unpack some of the discussions that transpired earlier on today, is Mr. Tawanda Chimini, the Executive Director for the Electoral Resource Center. Good evening and welcome to ZFM.
Thank you for having me. How are you?
Excellent. Just give us a brief rundown on today's hearings before, as we wait for our next guest to join us.
Today has been a very eventful day. I think we were encouraged by the turnout at the Senate chambers, where Zimbabweans came out and they had a lot to say about elections. Yeah. I think it goes without saying that there's a lot of built-up energy
yes, it is, yeah.
amongst Zimbabweans in terms of electoral issues. Mm-hmm. So in as much as the petition itself was specific to the alignment of the Electoral Act, I think Zimbabweans took that opportunity to also express their general views on elections and their general expectations around elections.
That's it.
Some things that do not necessarily relate to the law at all, but things that Zimbabweans are passionate about. So to us, this is very encouraging. I think it's a good start to the hearing processes. We're hoping that Parliament, and specifically the committee responsible, which is the Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee, will take into considerations all that Zimbabweans are saying about elections and ensure that when their report is finally debated in Parliament, there is a real reflection of what people want, and the expectation is that parliamentarians who debate the committee report will take the views of the citizens as being the important thing, regardless of which political party the parliamentarians are coming from. It will be important for them to really show that they would want to protect the Constitution, to really show that as Parliament they are taking seriously their role in terms of protecting the Constitution and promoting democratic governance in Zimbabwe. And the only way they can do that is to seriously consider what Zimbabweans have been saying.
As I said earlier on, today is a special program brought to you by the Election Resource Center. We're looking at the public hearings that are going to be happening throughout the country. And of course, it's your opportunity as a citizen of Zimbabwe to be part of these hearings, so you can also air your concerns and also your merits with regards to the current elections that will be taking place. Why did the ERC petition Parliament, and what informed the process and why?
Right, we petitioned Parliament because we were worried. Like a lot of Zimbabweans out there, we were worried that we had elections in 2013.
Right.
We got to the end of 2015. And there was not much that had been done in terms of addressing the challenges that had been faced in the previous elections. And we were also worried that the attempts at aligning laws or amending laws 2 years into the sitting of this current Parliament had not reflected a serious approach to the electoral issues. In fact, we were seeing amendments that related to other things and not specifically to elections. Now, considering the view that elections are a continuous process, and this is the argument that we always put out, we were of the belief that if we were to seriously consider what happens in 2018, the time was then in terms of making sure that the laws were right. And we're also considering the fact that we were running by-elections. And in our view, we're running by-elections on the basis of an electoral act that was not fully aligned to the Constitution. Right. So potentially we are running, in fact, elections unconstitutionally.
Right.
So
Hence the need for alignment.
Hence the need for alignment. So we then took advantage of the provisions in the Constitution, provisions relating to Section 139, provisions relating to Section 141 and 149 of the Constitution that relate to how the public can interact with Parliament and contribute in the lawmaking process, including the petitioning itself.
Right.
So the new Constitution actually provides that the public, in the event that the executive or the legislature does not address certain elements, the public can actually come in and input into the process.
Okay.
So we did petition on the basis of the provisions of the Constitution, and we had to wait 1 year to get a response from Parliament, and finally they did give us a response, hence the public hearings that have been rolled out starting today.
All right, so then of course that being a step towards progress, but then what would you say are the main issues that were highlighted in the petition?
In the petition, we have highlighted issues relating to the independence of the Commission. Our argument being that the current provisions in the Electoral Act are contrary to what the Constitution says. So the Constitution is very clear. The Electoral Commission must be independent,
right,
and no one must influence how it operates. But provisions in the current Electoral Act do not say that. They actually state that there are people who can influence how the Commission operates, and we would want that removed, because for our elections to be credible, the referee must be independent. They must not have any influence from anybody.
Of course, yes, definitely a lot of questions coming, of course, from who would be refereeing the process. Just to also bring in our listeners, voters' roll needs revamping. The dead and the living are in the voters' roll, and secondly, there is no voter education at all, if any. And only that happens in 2 months prior to the elections. This is from Lily in Hatfield.
Yeah, the question of the voters' roll and voter registration is also in the petition. Hence, Lily must get in touch with her parliamentarian and tell her parliamentarian that she would want to see these changes in Parliament. We mentioned that on the basis of the fact that we believe voter registration must be accessible to all. And must be done in a transparent manner, because the Constitution talks about the promotion of democratic governance in Zimbabwe,
right,
and you can promote democratic governance if processes relating to elections are done in a transparent and accountable manner. So the question of the voters' roll is, in fact, part of what we have petitioned Parliament to do, to ensure that in terms of the Electoral Act, the principles of voter registration are adhered to, in terms of it being very inclusive, that is the process, it being done in a very transparent manner, so that everybody understands how their names are getting onto the voters' roll,
right,
and how names are being removed from the voters' roll.
Right.
And the Constitution, in fact, talks about a verifiable election. So if our elections are to be verifiable, you need to have processes that are also verifiable, meaning the voters' roll itself must be a credible product of an inclusive process. So we have actually highlighted that as one of the major elements. So Lily must be encouraged to write to the Portfolio Committee of Justice and have her voice heard in terms of addressing the concern that she has raised there.
All right. And then also another comment that's come in asking us if you could please tell us once again where and when the hearings will be taking place. Just please stay tuned to the show. We'll definitely focus on that area a bit later on today. During the hearing, I also noticed that a couple of comments did come in line with the voters' roll registration, issues around the biometric voter registration, the BVR, and the effects that would have on the techno-apathy that is experienced in the greater majority of the country, especially in line with information being made accessible. The timelines being met? Is there a set timeline that has been presented to ZEC to ensure that people must know when they can register and how they're going to go about registering?
Yeah, again, it's a question that we've raised in the petition in terms of voter education. So naturally, I mean, we're living in a globalized world, so the use of technology is inevitable. But clearly, there are some context issues that we must deal with.
Right.
And part of dealing with those context issues must relate to how we disseminate information and how Zimbabweans access information. So current provisions around voter education are quite restrictive to the extent that only very few people can actually conduct voter education. But the Constitution talks about freedom of expression as a constitutional right. So if there is freedom of expression in terms of it being a constitutional right, the expectation is that anybody who wants to school or teach their colleague around voter education issues, they must do that without needing to to seek authority from a commission to do it. But we also understand that there must be a management process where we ensure that the information that is being given to potential voters is correct information. But that attempt at ensuring that there is quality information given and correct information given must not take away the freedom of expression that already exists in the Constitution.
Okay.
So that's part of what we're pushing for. And voter education pertaining to biometric voter registration is something that should start as soon as possible, before the registration process actually starts.
The question then, of course, becomes when is as soon as possible. Unfortunately, we are going to take a small break. We'll be right back. You listen to a special program brought to you by the Election Resource Center. You listen to ZFM Stereo, my station, your station. Please stay tuned. As of course, today we're focusing on the public hearings that have been happening throughout the country. And another quick announcement looking at the dates and venues. Harare at the Senate Chamber, that's 2 p.m. This will be on the 24th of October, all the way to Sunday, the 30th of October. Concession at the RDC Hall at 10 a.m. Mutoko at the Mutoko Rural District Council at 10 a.m. Mutare at the Mutare Civic Center Hall at 10 a.m. Bulawayo at the Imenyela Hall at 10 a.m. Gwanda at the Gwanda Hotel at 10 a.m. and Gweru at the Gweru Civic Center also at 10 a.m. I'd like to thank my guest in studio who joined me tonight, Mr. Tawanda Chimini, Executive Director for the Election Resource Center, and who's just recently joined us, Jessie Majome, Chairperson for the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs. Good evening and welcome to ZFM.
Good evening and thank you for inviting me.
All right, also just to bring you onto the discussion, we're focusing, of course, on the importance of the hearings and the points and views that are being aired by the public around issues, of course, that incorporate the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. Vachimini, how do you feel the first public hearings should go, and what would be the major highlights?
I think the public hearings must afford an equal opportunity to every Zimbabwean to express themselves. Not everyone will understand the difference between the legislative issues and the administrative issues, but we sincerely believe that the public hearings must be a fair platform for citizens to express themselves. And what we've seen today in terms of the turnout, I think it's a good start. So we're looking forward to tomorrow's public hearing in concession. We're hoping that people from National and Central will come out in their numbers and also express themselves about how they feel in terms of the legal framework of our elections, and share with parliamentarians their expectations in terms of the kind of changes that they would want to see. Everybody gets affected by elections, so this is a real opportunity for people to interact with an attempt to improve how our elections are conducted, especially looking at 2018 elections.
Okay, right. If I could also just bring in the chairperson in the discussion. I noticed earlier on today, during a section in the hearing, there was a comment that was made looking at equal access to media in state-run media. Those opinions, of course, do come in line with the current elections coming up. How do you feel that a level playing field is going to be represented, of course, within the state-run media for opposition movements?
Look, you're asking me to prophesy what will happen. Unfortunately, I'm very poor at at prophesying what will happen in the state media. And I'm actually a very interesting person to ask because as a citizen in my own capacity, as a private citizen, I have a matter that is pending before the Constitutional Court about the same issue, about the clear provisions of the Constitution as far as the political rights, as well as the right to freedom of expression in the Constitution, which has very, very detailed and very specific provisions about what a public broadcaster must do, that it is required to be accessible to each and every person of any different persuasion and must not be biased. But then also in Chapter 7, the Constitution also goes to town also about the responsibility of the state to ensure that the electoral environment is such that all those who want to have a say in elections get a chance to do so. So, like I said, I can only tell you what the legal position is. And also because, you see, as a member of parliament, like all other members of parliament, and together as parliament, we have a responsibility of ensuring that the Constitution is upheld. And the Constitution says clearly what is required to be done. We have a responsibility to ensure that it is fulfilled, and it simply must be done. There must be, it says that there must be fairness and access in terms of political views, not even political parties, but even anyone who has any view that who wants to advance a policy or oppose a policy.
And I think that it's very important and very interesting that you also highlight, because we also have to look at the role of the ordinary person, the voter, in terms of how then they too fit into this process, as opposed to necessarily just airing out their opinions. How can they also be part of the process?
In terms of ordinary citizens, I think airing their views can be done through, like I said, we elect people into parliament.
Right.
And these people are supposed to serve our interests once they're in parliament. So the encouragement is every Zimbabwean must at least have a mobile number of their MP. Even if that MP is not in the Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee, and urge them to do what Parliament is supposed to be doing.
Right.
So that's part of the participation that should be there. You know, I get the sense that when people seek public office and seek to be elected into public office, at times they don't appreciate the full extent of the responsibility that comes with that office. That office comes with the responsibility of having to listen to everybody, regardless of their political affiliations. So we would want to encourage Zimbabweans to actually get in touch with their members of parliament and talk to them about what they want legislated.
Well, on that particular point, the comment that's just coming right now is, I've attended public hearings, but on the last one, did not have enough MPs. Do MPs not attend the hearings, and if so, why not?
No, interesting. In terms of the standing rules and orders of Parliament, for a public hearing constituted by Parliament to be legally correct, that is to have quorum, there are required to be 5 members of that portfolio committee. But if the chairperson is present, all you need are 2 other members of Parliament. And they do attend committee meetings and sittings of Parliament, as to the best of their ability. Not every member of Parliament can attend each and every sitting of Parliament or each and every sitting of committee. So, but I would want to assure the member of the public who wrote that concern is that what is necessary is that as long as the quorum, if a hearing is held, it is in order,
right,
and views are recorded by the Hansard. So what will be happening in the hearing itself, is part of what the inquiries are about, because we reports proceedings are recorded verbatim, and then in addition, actually, like in this particular case, we are inviting, as with procedure, that anyone who also has any views that they want Parliament to read, particularly about the petition, they can actually write to the Portfolio Committee. They address their correspondence to the clerk of the Portfolio Committee on Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, and they can send it to by email if they can, clerk@parlzim.gov.zw, clerk@parlzim.gov.zw, or they can actually write a letter and with their pen and their typewriter or printer, write it, address it to the clerk at Parliament, PO Box CY 298 Causeway, or they can deliver it to the Parliament Building, Nelson Mandela Avenue, Harare, or they can give it to their member of Parliament so that it comes to the Portfolio Committee. But we would urge that they do this within possibly the next 2 weeks or so, because we're going to be winding up proceedings. So so I'm saying this to emphasize that, if there are 2 members of Parliament and 3, it's perfectly in order. It's a hearing, and because the committee will consider all those views, those that have been said at that hearing, using the verbatim reports as well as the others that have been received. That is what goes into the report.
Okay, right. The comment that's coming is, we thank the Almighty God, at least the public hearings have taken off, starting with Harare. Farai attended today's hearings and it was magnificent. It magnificently went well. It was smooth, save at some moment when there was a rogue member of in the Portfolio Committee tried to spoil the people's show, but this was adequately dealt with. Kudos to Zimbabweans. Let's stay the course. Thank you, ERC. Of course, a comment coming in from our listener who managed to attend earlier on today.
Yeah. I think it was really unfortunate, and I'm sure the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee can share her views on that. But I think at the end of the day, like I said, Zimbabweans have constantly been expressing frustrations around elections, and I'm glad to be hearing people saying that at least they're doing something about those frustrations. So it's a clear opportunity for us Zimbabweans to come together and have our voice heard. And like I said before, the real anticipation that we have as one of the petitioners, is that whatever comes out from the public hearings is something that Parliament takes seriously and carries forward.
Okay. Another comment that's come in with regards to the hearings themselves, but more importantly around their locations, is that would the public hearings extend to small towns, growth points, and rural areas at large? Another one that's also coming is Haifarai. I think these points are these points of locations are very few. Each and every citizen cannot be involved. Kwa isusu kumusha kuno kwa Chinambuya tuenda kumtarere. This is from Sir Charles in Headlands. So then how do we also deal with that particular issue with regards to people who may feel as though that they are also not being incorporated in the process of the public hearings?
Those people are welcome, as I indicated again, what I said and also what Mr. Chimini said. They are members of Parliament that are in each and every constituency. In the National Assembly, there are 270 of us. In the Senate, there are about 80 more, including chiefs. So those members of the public who would really want to have a say and who we are unfortunately not able to reach because time and resources and so on, we urge them to talk to their members of Parliament and to write to us. Again, I can repeat the address. They can write to it as to the clerk of the Portfolio Committee. They can even just say Parliament of Zimbabwe, Nelson Mandela Avenue, Harare. It will arrive.
Okay.
Or they can write to PO Box CY 298 Causeway, or they can send an email clerk@palzim.gov.zw. Unfortunately, we can't reach each and every place, but I will say that the Portfolio Committee has actually, for these particular hearings, we try as far as possible to go to all provinces and to use a mix of rural and urban hearings. But in this particular case, they are mostly urban because of the time constraints we had. But in previous hearings, when we did the electoral amendment bill itself and the general laws amendment bill, we went to places like Murambinda, we went to Mtasa Rural District Council, we went to Lupane, we went in all sorts of other places. So today, maybe next time, and so on.
There is favorable reach. Unfortunately, we are out of time, and we look forward to, of course, having more information being made available to you through the Election Resource Center, resourcing for electoral excellence.
I want to plead to members of the public to please come to the hearings, but when they come, please note that Parliament does not allow people to come wearing political party insignia of any kind, no political slogans, and we're expected to be peaceful and respectful and as tolerant of each other as possible so that these hearings can happen. We'll listen to everyone. Everyone's view is important. We'll take it aboard. Okay.
No, thank you so much for your closing contributions. I'd like to thank my guest in studio tonight, Mr. Tawanda Chimini, Executive Director for the Election Resource Center, and of course, Jessie Majoma, Chairperson for the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs. Thank you so much for joining us here at ZFM.
Thank you.
All right, you'll be listening to the special program brought to you by the Election Resource Center, resourcing for electoral excellence. My name is Farai Gwaze. Please stay tuned to ZFM Stereo, my station, your station.